What's going on, Niner fam? It is Peter Lucas. This is the Niner Fanatic Podcast, and another week, another week of 49er maybes, coulda, woulda, shouldas, and yeah, sorry that I wasn't here on Tuesday. Beto and Brandon couldn't get a schedule down, so it is what it is. We missed the show. I had to make sure that I gave you guys a show today, and it really 49ers not in a good spot. It's long story short, that's really what it is. And we're gonna get into the title of the show, responsibility. We're gonna get into what that means what responsibility means for the 49ers and what we're going to get to a few things, and we're going to hear from what Kyle Shanahan said yesterday, as well as what Sorensen and the O-line coach said today. But before we get into any of it, we got to hit the music.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I like to know.
are you ready for start time?
And once again, it is Peter Lucas. This is the Niner Fanatic Podcast. Make sure you give the video a like. Make sure that you give it a subscribe. Make sure that you hit the bell so you get the notifications for when I go live. And so 49er land has been, and for lack of a better it's just been bad. It's been bad all the way around this season for the 49ers. They've been, decimated by injuries. But even before they were decimated by injuries, they were losing games they should have won. And there's no particular spot where you can blame because they're losing in all three phases of the game. Offense isn't scoring enough points. Defense can't hold teams when they absolutely need to stop. And special teams is just the dumpster fire that it's always been. So we have to, when we talk about responsibility. So I see a lot of people, and I tweeted this out, I think it was yesterday. I tweeted it out that, people are going to blame Shanahan. They're going to blame the offense. They're going to blame the people are going to blame the defense. People are going to blame Purdy. People are going to blame the special teams. People are going to blame the refs. People are going to blame. There's just 20 million things. Everybody's trying to blame somebody. So at what point, who takes responsibility for this 49ers season? And a lot of people are saying that Kyle, and we see it all the time. You've got I wouldn't even say half the fan base, but there's a certain number of the fan base that wants Shanahan fired. I don't want to dwell on that because I don't think it's even worth. Is it even worth talking about? Because he's not going to happen. Long story short, it's not going to happen. Whether people want it to or not, it doesn't matter what you want. The fans have zero power over who ends up being the coach. And the reality is Shanahan has made Jed York a lot of money. A lot of money. And what's going on to my guy, Captain Niner? Appreciate you coming through, fam. Always a pleasure. And he says that Manti Te'o was right. This team is mentally broke after losing Super Bowl for the second time. Well, Manti Te'o would know what mentally broke looks like. So it's, but this is, the reality is it's very unusual for a team to be too good for too long. And that's why they call it a Super Bowl window, is because a lot of teams, there's a finite window of when you hit on a mix of players, you've got to coach, and this is your time. You've got to strike while the iron is hot, and you got to get that ring in 2 if you can, 3 if you're real lucky. I mean, that's only happened a couple of times. But the 49ers had their window. It obviously is shutting. And I know people are going to get mad because I'm saying, oh, well, they still have a good roster. Next year they can they've got aging superstars. The injuries should tell you enough. And granted, 2020 they had the same number of injuries. It was to the point to where they barely could field a team, and but the responsibility of that goes on to go like it makes all those injuries. It just puts a big bright spotlight on Kyle Shanahan, and because there's a lot of teams out there with a lot of injuries, and one's playing right now in Detroit, but they found a way to work around what they have. And how do they do that? Well, glad you asked. What a lot of teams do, and the bad teams do what Shanahan's doing right now, which is making guys fit into what he wants to do. He's going to do what he's going to do regardless of what the personnel is. He's going to run what he's going to run. But what really good coaches do is they tailor their scheme to their personnel and get their person and do they put their personnel in a position to succeed. You can't call stuff that you know your personnel can't run. And all this season, I've been talking about it all season that you've got Shanahan obviously trying to transition to a new offense. Oh, what's going on, media? Appreciate you coming through, fam. Always a pleasure. Uh, Make sure you give my guy a follow on YouTube and Twitter. But when you get down to it, Shanahan he runs his system. And I think he really thinks that, and that's worked in the past because his system was easily accessible for running backs. It was easily accessible for quarterbacks. It's hard to master, but it's still quarterback friendly because it ran a lot off of play action, takes a lot of the pressure off of the quarterback. Well, this year they transitioned, and we all said it before the season, all of us. There's like, and when I say all of us, I'm talking about Twitter, I'm talking about Facebook, Threads, YouTube, all the content creators. They all said the same thing. How is Kyle Shanahan going to evolve? How are we going to see the growth in Brock Purdy? And there was an obvious shift last year into what the scheme they were doing, a whole bunch of drop back passing, but not nearly as much as they're doing this year. And last year they were still using play action. They were still using the run. They were still using play action. This year, play action is almost off the board. And they are transitioning to a drop back passing game and with a sprinkle of run game in there. And that transition and trying to is the problem I see for the 49ers, and the reason why they can get yards. They can get yards. And that's what I should have brought up, but they're top 10 in all these offensive categories. But guess what? They're not top 10 in points scored. So you can get all the yards and you can make all the plays, but when you get penalties that knock you back, when you just can't get in the end zone because guys are just not doing the things that really realistically speaking, they're just not following the game plan. Like, people aren't running crisp routes, people aren't getting open. Offensive linemen as middle of the road as they have been this season, and they're not totally to blame. There's always a really bad mistake made, at really inopportune times, and which sets them back. There's a hold. Oh, now we're 2nd and 15 instead of 3rd and 2. It's they just have a really hard time with just finishing drives. So, but I look, you watch these games, and a lot of it just seems like these guys don't know, not necessarily don't know what they're doing, but they just seem out of place. They're making constant mistakes because they're not used to running this type of offense. And honestly, we don't have these players are not built for a drop back passing game. They were built for a heavy run game, play action, run it, yak bros, run after the catch type of offense. That's what this team was built for. Now you're asking those older players to run not a completely different offense, but an offense that's predicated on route running. It's a lot of drop back game. There's not as much surprise. Like there's not much disguise. I mean, they can do all the motions and stuff, but they're not fooling anybody. And then teams are just covering the middle of the field because they know that's the part of the field that the 49ers want to hit. And I just look at this team, and when I think of responsibility, you have to put the responsibility for this season on Shanny. And who knows honestly what the actual plan was. But I think it's kind of weird that there just doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency. Like they don't feel like in these interviews, like they see anything wrong. I feel like they're almost treating it like growing pains instead of what the fans see it as, which is a waste of a season. These guys are going to be a year older next year. These injuries are not going to go away. In my opinion, as these guys get older, it's going to be harder and harder. But the physical team that you've known and loved for the last however long Shanahan's been here, I think this is his 9th season. Like the physical team that we were known for, the bully ball, that's gone. Don't even. This team is not going to be a physical football team anymore. I mean, if you look at the game and you pay attention to what they're doing, that's not what they're trying to run. Even at the beginning of the season, before the injuries, before all of it, they've been pretty methodical about what they're doing. There is no change. They haven't changed anything all season long. Like every time we say, "Oh well, he's got to adjust. Shanny's got to adjust. He hasn't adjusted anything. He's not going to do anything that any person says that he really should do." I just think he's trying to find something that it almost looks like he's just trying stuff out and seeing if he can find anything that works. That's really what it looks like to me. But let's see, stats. Here it is. So 49ers, even after last game, they're still 9th in passing yards, 7th in rushing yards, 7th in total yards per game. And let me look at rankings. So you've got Brock Purdy with 2,700 yards passing. They are. So I said all that stuff. They're top 10 passing yards and rushing yards. Top 10. And 7th in total yards per game in the NFL. But they're 16th in points scored. And so they're middle of the road in points scored. So that means they're not terrible, but they're not good either in points scored. But the issue with their points scored, even being the middle of the road, is that they can't, is that they're not, it's the way that they're scoring points. They're scoring a lot of field goals. They're just not finishing drives. And when you're that high on the passing yards and the rushing yards, the inability to finish is just glaring. That means you're just moving the ball constantly, and then you're just allowing yourself to you're shutting yourself down once you get to the red zone. The And then on the flip side, the defense, which was pretty actually upper, they were top 10 in a lot of categories to up until what, about 2 weeks ago. Now they are 24th in points against. Uh, they're still fifth in total yards against, fifth in the league in allowing yards, and they're fourth in passing yards against. Where it gets dicey is they're 15th, which is middle of the road, in rushing yards against, and then they're 20th in sacks, which they were before Bosa got hurt. They were on a pretty good trajectory. They were still top 10 in that category, even with what we perceived as a not a great pass rush. They were still top 10 at the time. And then they're ninth in interceptions with 11. But so they're getting turnovers. They're getting turnovers, but they can't do anything with the turnovers. And the last couple of games, they're not getting turnovers. Well, at least last game they didn't get turnovers. They had them. They're right there. They're in position. And this is where I come to Nick Sorensen, because everybody keeps talking about Nick Sorensen so bad, so bad, so bad. He doesn't have Nick Bosa. And anybody knows that has been watching this team for any amount of time, like, knows that defensive line goes as Nick Bosa goes. And I still think that they're doing pretty decent with the guys that they've got. Are they in position all the time? No, they're not. But I would say looking at this defense, they weren't gonna be a bunch of sacks, and it was gonna go back to 2009. There was never gonna be that, because before all the injuries, they weren't that. So for people to expect it now that Bosa's hurt, Huff has been down most of the season, no Greenlaw for all of the season. Like, when you're missing these really good players, Charvarius Ward was down for weeks, and honestly, I don't even know if he should be playing. I don't know if I could function with all the stuff that's going on with him. But you've got all that going on. These are your best players. That's four of your best players on defense. And for you to expect the defensive coordinator just to pivot, hey, next man up. It's kind of baffling, I'll be honest. Because this is the thing. Even with all that going on, they're still fifth total yards against. They're still fourth in passing yards against, and they're still middle of the road against the rush. So, but the glaring one is points against, which tells me if you're not giving up a ton of yards, what does that tell you? You're not getting up a ton of yards, but you're getting near the bottom in points against. That tells me they're getting a lot of short fields. And the offense is leaving them in terrible positions. They don't have the personnel to just constantly be covering up for the offense anymore, which is what the offense really depended on them to do for years. For years, when Jimmy was the quarterback, how many times did he put the defense in terrible positions? And but the defense was so stellar that they would just lock down. And even if they would get off on fourth downs, they would get off the field. Like it was, it's you just got to look at this as you can't look at it just from straight X's and O's all the time. And this is where I talk about the bean counters. The bean counters will tell you that he is just the most Sorensen is just the most terrible person. And do I think he's a finished product? Absolutely not. Do I think that he has places to improve? Absolutely. But this, considering what he doesn't have on the field, is not terrible. It's not terrible. And I I would venture to say that he's probably gonna be back next year. I wouldn't be shocked if he was back next year. A lot of people want him fired now, but I would not be shocked if he's back next year. Uh, and people are talking about. I saw something today that I have to speak on. And let me check on my guys. Let's see. Captain says ton to blame on Brendel. Like, I mean, the O line, like Brendel is probably the one constant that they have to blame. But once again, that comes down to we've talked about that on shows before. It once again that comes down to their philosophy shift and to go into just drafting all weapons and not they stopped caring about the offensive line and defensive line at some point, at least the quality of what was going into their offensive and defensive lines. That the drafting, the offensive line went on the back burner. And when that happens, when they think that they found a cheaper option at Brendel, they took that opportunity. And to their credit, he got a Pro Bowl alternate, but it couldn't hold. It just couldn't hold because the reality is Brendel is a backup. He's serviceable, but he's a backup. And they should absolutely be looking to upgrade, in my opinion. But they won't. They're not going to upgrade. Why are they not going to upgrade? Why do I say that they're not going to upgrade? They've had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. They passed on Creed Humphrey. They had an opportunity to get Creed Humphrey, draft him. They chose not to. They picked Drake Jackson. They had an opportunity to get this last season. They passed over Jackson Powers Johnson. They passed over at least 3 serviceable right now starters in the NFL at the center spot that have way more upside than Brendel. And they don't care. They don't care. And I'm not talking about this year's. I'm not going to disparage this year's draft class because the reality is it's a pretty good draft class. But and I get it. There's a lot of good players in this draft class. But were they positions of need is the question. You've got Ricky Pearsall out there running a whole bunch of routes and then only gets 3 targets. And that was your first round pick. The guy that should be like contributing the most out of the draft picks is really not. He's just out there. And then you've got a Jacob Cowing out there that is just returning kicks and punts, really. You've got Pooney and Renardo Green that are really, really, I would say, really good to serviceable. And then you've got, there's a bunch of really good players in this draft class. However, we don't really know what Pearsall is going to be. And this is the thing. Mustafa, I can't forget Mustafa. Mustafa is one of my favorites, I'll be honest. But this is the thing. You drafted another strong safety. Like, when do we get a free safety with some speed? Where is the ball hawking free safety type? Like, we have three strong safeties in Huff. Jair Brown is a strong safety. People have been killing on him all season, but he's playing out of position. Whether people want to admit it or not, he does not have the speed and athleticism enough to play the single high. Like, he just doesn't. He's really good. All of the safeties that the 49ers have are good around the line of scrimmage, and they'll make those plays underneath. But when it comes into coverage, time to coverage, that's where and granted, fifth in yards against passing yards against in the league. As a whole, I think that the secondary is doing a really good job. But when the offense of the other team makes plays, it's usually we're talking about Jair Brown being out of position, or one of the safeties being out of position. And it's just, I don't know. I just feel like when we talk about responsibility, you've got to look at, and somebody brought this up on Twitter, you got to look at Shanahan, and does he need to be involved in the day-to-day, like just the roster building? Because I really think that somebody just needs to pick his picks for him and just give him the people and make him make do with what they give him. Because I just think that if he wasn't involved with some of these picks, if we weren't picking multiple running backs in the third round that are no longer on the team, the Javon Kinlaws and the trading up to get Trey Lance and all the misses that the 49ers have had in the higher rounds. I just think if Shanny was not involved with some of that stuff, that I think that this roster might look a little bit different. And we might be able to weather some of these injury storms as these guys get older up in age. But because of Shanny's stubbornness, and he's always got a reason for why he picked them. But yeah, picking a kicker in the third round, like, I mean, I don't know what else to say about Moody. I told y'all that's a mistake, but it is what it is. Jesus, what's going on, my guy? Appreciate you coming through, fam. Bears will be better prepared, concentrated. I mean, they can't be any worse than when Eberflus was there. And Captain says, besides the old offensive line for the Bears, they're not as bad as their record. And the question is can the 49ers take advantage of their offensive line? I mean, they don't have the greatest pass rush right now. This is an opportunity for Nick Sorensen to gain some followers by mixing in some blitzes, disguise some stuff, and let's get some pressure on a rookie quarterback that I don't care what anybody says has been up and down. He's been up and down. Like at the beginning, he was terrible, but Caleb Williams, he's been up and down since. He makes some plays. There's no doubt about that, but he's been up and down. And honestly, he's got a lot to. I did not like him calling out, I can't remember who hit him, but he said it was a dirty hit. He was still in bounds when he got hit, but he said it was a dirty hit. It was. I don't always like all of that. Like for my quarterback, I don't like him putting blame on people. I just don't like my players doing that. Don't be calling out other players and all that other kind of stuff. That's why I don't even like it when Debo was doing it. Like, just focus on embarrassing the guys that talk. Just focus on embarrassing those guys that are in front of you. Media says this offense is the same old boring. It's not the same. I mean, it's the same for this season, but it's not the same as it has been in the past. They're not running the same stuff. So it's really weird to me. It's not. I understood that eventually this offense was going to have to grow and evolve. But at the same time, you're not like you're not perfecting anything. You're obviously your guys were not prepared to run this. I don't even think that the 49ers players that they have in the building right now can run what they're trying to run. And on defense either. So, and media says he still thinks teams don't know what he's going to do, which is not the case. I don't necessarily, because he does run the occasional really good play design, but at the same time, when we talk about it, he is. It's not that they know what play exactly he's going to run, but they know the area of the field that he wants to attack. So they're not even paying attention to the bells and whistles and all the motions and all that stuff. They're just covering the middle of the field and making Purdy beat them from the to the outside. Which to get to the, if you watch any of Shanny's drop back passing game, it takes forever for his play designs to get to the to be able to pass to the outside, which is why Purdy ends up running for his life, because this offensive line is not built to hold up in pass protection. And I think that Purdy's scrambling ability masks how average to below average this offensive line is, because they're getting great. I don't know how they're getting. I don't understand how PFF is doing their grading, but Purdy does not have as long in the pocket as people try to make it out to be. And I just think from a play design standpoint, when you have a 5 and 7 step drop, you're not planning on any type of quick game, which we have yet to see any type of quick game from Shanahan ever. There is no 1, 2, 3 out, ball out. Like, there is none of that. So how you doing, Riley? I appreciate you coming through, fam. Like, apparently she is a Brock Purdy fan. She says Brock Purdy is hot. I'm not going to go there with you. That's a big pause for me, but you do you. And Captain says he's doing better than any USC QB in 20 years. Well, I mean, oh, what's going on, Terradome? Appreciate you coming through, fam. Always a pleasure. And but let's look at the Chicago Bears offense. They are, and let's talk about how good that USC quarterback is doing, because they are 27th in passing yards. They are 23rd in rushing yards. Total yards per game, they're 26th. Caleb Williams is thrown for 2,600 yards, which is only like 100 less than Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy missed the game. So, but either way, I don't think that that's too bad. I don't think that that's too bad for a rookie. And, but yeah, it's when you look at their point, and they're also points scored, they're 23rd. So they're actually scoring. What is it? Point. Oh yeah, they're much worse than the Niners in points scored. They're much worse than the Niners in points scored. Well, 2 points. 2 points divides them. 2.5 points. And the time of possession, Chicago is 15th. The 49ers are 8th. I mean, all of the stats on for the 49ers offense looks like they should be dominating games, and they just aren't. It's just the weirdest season, and it sucks for the bean counters out there, because they have nothing that they can point to from the box score that is the reason why the 49ers are losing. All they keep talking about is people keep saying that Shanahan should be fired, and their rebuttal is DVOA, the stats. Like, look at their fifth in this, fourth in this, but they're 5-7. And oh, well, the injuries. They were healthy, relatively healthy at the beginning of the year. Well, still, blah 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 blah. It's just it's silly. The bean counters are going through it this year. But then you look at the Chicago Bears defense, and they're ninth in points against. A lot better than the 49ers. But it's only, well, it's 4.5 points that separate them. And then they're 22nd in total yards against. They're 11th in passing yards against, 25th in rushing yards against, which would say run the ball. But there was a similar team that had that similar ranking that the 49ers played last week in Buffalo. Buffalo gave up a lot of yards on the ground, and then but points against was they were near the top of the league. So I think that the Bears are going to play. I mean that it's if you go by the statistics, it says that they want to play like some bend but don't break. They're going to let you go down the field, but they're going to tighten up in the red zone, which the 49ers stink in the red zone. And honestly, I think that that's what a lot of teams are doing this year. They're just letting teams go down the field, and then in the red zone, they're trying to tighten up. But the 49ers can't even tighten up in the red zone, and that's the problem for them. But they are 16th in sacks, which is better than the 49ers by 2. They've got 2 more sacks than the 49ers. And then interceptions, they're 12th. And the 49ers are better than them by 2. So pretty similar. But yeah, Caleb Williams, like we talk about the 2,600 yards. He's also throwing 61. I guess you can let's round it up to 62%. In yesteryear, that would have been an okay percentage. In today's game, like it's considered, it's not, it's subpar. So I just look at this team. He says he has the least amount. He has the least amount of time to get rid of the ball than any other quarterback. I don't like. I think that Caleb Williams is very talented. I just think that he was put in a bad position. If he was on the Niners, I think that his stats would look a lot different. And this is not a slight on Brock, but at the same time, Caleb Williams has a lot of physical tools that Brock just doesn't have and can't have. There's no way for him to develop height and athleticism and arm strength. So it is what it is. Like if he just happened to go, Caleb Williams just happened to go to a dumpster fire of a team with a dumpster fire for a coach, and they've never developed their offensive line. But they depend on more of a power running game, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work because you've got, what are they, rushing yards per game? They're 23rd in rushing yards per game. Yeah, it's not good over there for the Bears. I don't know why teams can't get out of the now that's not a traditional Bears team, because traditionally the Bears teams always can run the ball. They don't have a good quarterback, but they play crazy good defense. That's historically been the Bears for a lot of years. But this year I think their quarterback is a little bit better than their running game. But either way, now, so we're talking about. But then you got to look at their running game. I think DeAndre Swift is hurt. I want to say. Uh, let's talk about the 49ers injuries real quick because Aaron Banks still not practicing. Nick Bosa not practicing. Uh, Flanagan Foles limited. Jordan Mason, he's probably going to go on IR. Trent Williams, I don't know if he's going to be back either. Dre Greenlaw was limited. Huff was limited. Demo is a full practice. He's probably playing. Jordan Elliott, full practice. He's playing. He's probably going to play. Sam Okuwanu, I think is how you pronounce it. He was full practice. Pooney's, I didn't even know he was hurt. But apparently he's full practice. Oh, with the shoulder. Brock full practice. He's going. George Odom did not practice. Gross Manos limited. Now for Chicago, they did have some injury issues, but Keenan Allen was a full practice, so he's probably playing. Ryan Bates, their tackle concussion, did not practice. He hasn't practiced either day. Elijah Hicks, their safety, did not practice. Rashawn Johnson, running back, did not practice. DJ Moore didn't practice. DeAndre Swift didn't practice. Kevin Byard, safety, limited, so he'll probably go. Coleman, Shelton, their center. I think he might be a backup, but he was limited. Darnell Wright, tackle, full practice, so he's probably playing. Mercedes Lewis, I can't believe Mercedes Lewis is still in the league, non-injury related. He just rests. He's just resting, so because he's old. But they've got some pretty big. DJ Moore not practicing that's a pretty big loss for them. Keenan Allen is old and slow, but he still got those wily veteran moves. And then you've got Rashawn Johnson was their backup, so now they're on the third string running back because DeAndre Swift, I believe, is out as well. And then their offensive line already was bad. So, but they've got multiple offensive linemen out. And now on any regular 49ers season, we'd be like licking our chops and we'd say, "Oh, this is going to be this is going to be a beatdown." But who knows? The 49ers still should beat this team. They should still beat the Bears. It should not be close. But it will be. I would be shocked if we saw anything different than we've seen all year long from the 49ers. And I'm not trying to be negative, but until they prove that they're going to change anything, I've got to go with what I see. And what I'm seeing is a bunch of inconsistency, a bunch of guys that it just doesn't look like they've got it in them to want to finish this season strong. I just think that losing the Super Bowl, the injuries, the personal issues all season, it's just hard. It's hard to overcome. And so you've got all that going on, plus the schematic issues with Shanny. And then Nick Sorensen going through his growing pains. It's just rough. I think it's kind of says a lot that they're able to put up the statistics that they have been with them playing so inconsistently. But that snow game was, I almost had to turn it off because it was that was the worst. That was some of the worst 49er football. That was easily the worst game I've ever seen in the Shanahan era. I don't think there's ever been a worse game under Shannon. Let's see. Florida drop. Jordan. Yeah. I saw that earlier. And then, he's going to get snubbed. Pooney's not going to be a pro. He might be a pro. He should be, but I have a feeling that they're going to find a way to keep him off and make him like an all rookie something or other. But I don't think he's going to get mentioned. Guards just don't get mentioned, especially now. I mean, when was the last time rookies were just? I mean, I guess it's possible. Yeah, Byard, I know, is a big loss. It would be a big loss for them if he was really hurt. But he is, yeah, he's limited. He's probably going to play. So it would not surprise me. And Terradome says PFF indicates the Bears O-line is relatively solid. I'm going off of what I saw. Like, PFF can grade whatever. It's never looked good to me. And I think that they're rushing. I always look, when I think of O-line play, I look at like the rushing yards. They have what, 11, 12 rushing yard, 12 rushing touchdowns, which I guess isn't terrible. They've got 12 rushing touchdowns. How many do the 49ers have? Oh, they don't have no stats? That can't be. Oh, there we go. 49ers have 7, 9, 10, 11. They've got 11. But the 49ers just aren't running the ball. Their Purdy has the most rushing touchdowns on the 49ers team. That should not be. And yeah, with 4. It's just the stats. You can't take anything from the stats. I'm only going off. I know the PFF says whatever, but I think statistics have been really turned on their side this year. Like there's a lot of statistics out there and that don't tell the whole story. And it's been glaring this year. I mean, if you look at the statistics, the 49ers should be one of the top teams in the league. But they're not. So I just look at the statistics and I just can't really take too much from them other than maybe play style and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's what happened? There we go. But I do want to hear. I'm going to play you guys the Shanahan interview from yesterday for those that didn't get to see it. So let's hear from Shanny, and then we're about to get ready to get out of here. But I wanted to go over that, see if we can't take anything away from what he's saying. And
all right, injuries for practice today. Banks concussion, will not practice. Trent Williams ankle, no practice. Jordan Mason ankle, no practice. Bosa hip oblique, no practice. Flanagan Fowles knee, no practice. Demo knee limited. Greenlaw Achilles limited. Huff wrist limited. Everyone else good.
The prognosis on Jordan Mason improved since he's not going on IR?
No, he most likely will later. Yeah.
What is Hufanga going to practice with as far as his wrist?
He's got some stuff covering it up. Club similar, like I think it's similar to Jimmy Ward's. Haven't seen it yet, but it'll be similar to that.
And as far as Greenlaw, you noted last week that you got a quick turnaround after this Bears game. Does that make the Rams game the more realistic game that he could play in?
Yeah, I think it does. More likely. I mean, we haven't decided fully yet, but we'll see how this week goes. But most likely Rams, hopefully.
What kind of growth have you seen from Isaac Guerrero this year, and what's kind of his state of readiness for an expanded role?
I think he's ready to go. I mean, we were excited about, got off to a late start with injuries in preseason. I thought he finished in those games well, especially that kick return, he had versus the Raiders, I think. Did some decent things when he started out. Didn't get a lot of carries, had some ups and downs, but got better through everything. And then when he got the bulk of the carries, I want to say some more versus Seattle. He only got better, and he's got better throughout the year, so I think he's ready for this.
Are there specific things that you've seen from him? That is it just maybe getting the reps or getting the snaps?
I think just the urgency of running the ball in the NFL. I mean, I think it takes guys some time. You start to get a feel for it. The more, if you got the right stuff, the more you get reps, the more you can adjust to it. How hard you got to hit stuff, how quick those holes close, how when there is a hole, how you have to hit at full speed and can't hesitate at all, or it closes like that. So we've seen that stuff get better in practice, and we've seen it carry over to games.
I do want to speak on Garendo getting the start this weekend, and a lot of people like in fantasy are like, man, it was crazy. They were just everybody was picking up Garendo, and I would pause on them going all in on Garendo, because if you look at it, he's had issues with injuries in the past in pros and college. Like, he's been dinged up on the 49ers. So I just think people need to pay attention to the guy that they just brought in. I think that Patrick Taylor is going to be involved just because he knows the offense. But I would say maybe not this week, but next week, keep an eye on the new guy, Abinaconda, that they got. I wanted the 49ers to draft him. So maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part. But I thought the 49ers should have taken him like a couple of is he a rookie this year? I think he was a rookie last year. And but I thought they should have went ahead and got him because I thought he was a really good fit for the system. Be on the look. Keep an eye on Abinaconda. I think that is going to be. I think that he is a better fit right now than Garendo. I know that he got cut by the Jets, but I mean they've got really a 2, maybe even a 3-headed monster over there. It was going to be hard for him to crack the rotation. So, and they don't even like to run the ball. That's the other part of it. They don't even like to run the ball. So you would think they would run the ball more, considering their situation, but they don't. So they released him. I think it's going to be the 49ers game. I think that it's definitely could be a reclamation project there. So, but be on the lookout for him.
Includes in high school as being a wide receiver. Does he have hands, the good receiving skills that you've seen?
Yeah, he can catch it. Yeah.
What have you seen out of Ricky Pearsall the last 3 games when he hasn't had a catch and hasn't had many targets?
I mean, I think Ricky got a little banged up and in Green Bay, battled through that a lot, still was able to play a lot through it and helped us out at punt return. And I don't judge much from that Buffalo game. I mean, I think we had 6 completions that were screens, and I think 4 other guys had like a 4-yard catch, except for Juwan on a skinny. So, there was nothing really with Ricky there. We had a chance to hit him downfield one time, and he slipped. But that was nothing against him for that game.
Coach, you said it on Monday. You hadn't yet had a chance to kind of talk to Christian after getting the news. How is he kind of doing? It's clearly been a taxing year on his body and more than likely mentally. How is Christian McCaffrey knowing that he's out for the rest of the season?
I think he's doing all right. I mean, I think he was extremely disappointed. I mean, right when it happened, for a couple of days, just talking to him yesterday, I think he's accepting it. It's just not his year, obviously, the way it started out, how hard he worked to get back, and then having that random injury that he had in Buffalo. So I know he's disappointed about the year, but I know he's excited and hungry as hell to get back to work and get ready for next year.
I'm going to speak on just a little bit of how Kyle looks in this interview. It's a little bit different than the way he's been looking throughout the season. He kind of cleaned up his look, cleaned up the he looks a little bit more clean shaven, doesn't look as disheveled as he has pretty much the whole season, doesn't look as angry. It's almost like he's resigned to his fate of this, the fate of this season. And now it's just about progressing. And but he looks calmer to me, which I'm going to be interested to see what that means as we go throughout the week. I'm sure he's going to talk one more time, maybe on Friday, tomorrow. And as we'll be seeing from him in the game, I'm just really interested to see if there is if there's a difference, if it makes a difference on Sunday. But he just looks a little bit more calmer. And I doubt that he pays attention to people saying that he looks tired and that he was looking disheveled and all that other stuff. But it looks like he made an attempt to clean up the look. I don't know if anybody else noticed that.
Certainty that Bosa will be able to play again this season?
I mean, I'm not God, but I think he's got a chance to play this week. So I would think that would lead to getting a better chance each week. But I don't know the answer to that.
What do you know about your new running back, Israel Abanikanda? What do you like about him?
I mean, I liked him coming out of college. You know, I haven't studied him a ton in the NFL, but he was a guy that I had good notes on from college and liked. And, you know, and I know our scouting department thought he was the best guy out there being available and stuff. So in our situation especially, glad to get him here.
Was he one of the running backs that Bobby was onto in the 23 draft doing the phone calls and things like that?
If Bobby's on every single one. So, like, yes, definitely.
What do you see from Caleb Williams?
What's that?
What do you see from Caleb Williams?
I mean, as talented as there is, I mean, just the stuff that you saw in college, you can see in the NFL. I mean, as good of a thrower as there is, born to play the position, got the athletic ability to do whatever. He's got the speed to do whatever. You know, he's gotten a lot of playing time. He's getting better as this year goes. I think he's getting a lot more consistent. I think he's been playing his best ball probably here the last few weeks. He's put him in a chance to win here these last few games.
I know, you coach that you prepare for or during seasons, there's just only so much they can alter.
Yeah, a little of both. I mean, there's only so much new coaches can do. I mean, they're not going to change a ton up, but I mean, they can have a different approach. You can have a different vibe from the team and stuff like that. And so you got to be prepared for everything. But you know, there's only so much.
Could McCaffrey potentially be back in a playoff scenario?
Yeah, I believe so. You know, I think usually though they say that injury is like a 6-week injury, so you know that would give a chance.
You mentioned after the trade deadline, it's a risk to make a move at the deadline. It's a risk to kind of stand hot. If you look back at it with any regrets, I mean, you can't predict what was going to happen, but regrets not being more aggressive.
No, because I don't think. I mean, how many aggressive moves you want to make, you know, and you make one aggressive
you need
move.
half a team.
But I don't think that, and what's happened, just one player would have changed anything in these last 3 weeks. Then when you do that, it just hurts you more going forward. So no regrets at all on that. Not to mention there wasn't really something sitting there that was enticing you if it was considered a big move. So I didn't really see that option, and you don't ever want to do that just to do it either.
What stands out about the Bears' defense when you watch them?
I mean, I think they're a real good defense. You know, I think how good they are in the red zone. I think they're ranked number 2 in the red zone. I think they're top 5 at getting turnovers. I think they're top 5 on third down. It's, you know, when they're top 5 in getting turnovers in their offense, I think it's number 1 at not giving up turnovers. It's usually a really good formula for winning. It's, you look at their team as a whole, they started out 4-2. They went on a bye. They lost the next game on a Hail Mary. Versus a good team in Washington, which, you know, so you'd like to say they should have been 5-2. And the next 5 games after that, you know, they got blown out 2 after that. But these last 3 games, they played as good as any team in the league, playing Minnesota, Green Bay, and Detroit, losing by a total of 7 points. So I see a defense that is capable of being a playoff defense. They played like it all year. They've just come up short here in these last 5 games.
Last week, Christian said that he felt the vibes outside the building were a lot lower than the vibes inside the building. After Sunday, do you feel the same way about that? Do you have confidence that you guys have the vibes to make the run?
I mean, I don't know. We don't go off vibes as much. I mean, you know, we were pretty disappointed after that game and stuff. That takes time. But you don't need much more than 48 hours. We're in here on Wednesday. Guys are ready to go to work. I mean, I think when you compare outside the building, inside the building, I mean, we're a football team that goes to work and tries to get better each day we're here. If you spend your day outside the building just reading and stuff, I'm sure your vibes won't be the same. But our vibes here are all about work, and that's what we enjoy doing.
When you're looking at the run defense and all the rushing touchdowns that have been given up this season, why is that happening? Is it just breakdowns across every level of the run defense when you get down in there?
Yes, there's not, when you ask why, I mean, we can go into a ton of things, but the bottom line is we haven't played good enough run defense. You look at all of our losses. I mean, these last 2 weeks have been as bad as it gets, especially, you know, when you give up the run game like we have in these last 2 weeks in the first half. the game's almost over before it starts, going into that second half. Still thought we had every chance to make it a game in the second half, but that's when we had our 3 turnovers in both games, which leads to blowouts. If you look at all of our losses this year, I think the least amount of yards we've given up in a loss is close to 150. So we haven't been stopping the run well enough that, starts with people being out of gaps. It can go to missed tackles. It can go to not getting off the field on third down so they get a few more runs called. Can go to not getting enough turnovers. And it can go to missed assignments. So it's all of the above.
We never asked you about Brock and the fumble that happened. Is there anything that he could have done, or was it just a slip out of his hand?
I mean, it just slipped out of his hand. I mean, I wish it didn't. It's not like you put different grip really on your hands and stuff. So you got to change your motion up a little bit, but that's also why you try to avoid throwing a lot in those situations. And that's what you try to do, but sometimes you can't avoid it, especially on third downs and things like that. And that's the challenges of playing in those conditions.
Was it to kind of judge his performance in Buffalo?
I mean, it is. I mean, you take that all with a grain of salt, but we watch each clip and we talk through it. And I mean, that was, it's always bad play when you lose the ball. But as far as going through a progression where the ball should have gone, that was his number 2 in the read. He looked at George. They moved zone coverage. He took a hitch and was going to rip it to the left side and was going to have an explosive to JJ, and the ball slipped out. So, I don't want to say that was one of his better plays, but he was doing everything right on that play, and I think we all saw why the ball slipped. There's plays in this game that we can coach him up to be better on, and there's some plays where it's like that, where it's an unfortunate situation.
We'll go today.
So, Brock Purdy. And I've been tweeting back and forth with a few people this week about Brock Purdy and whether he should be paid. You see it all over the place in social media. Should he be paid? Should they be paying him top market value? And I don't know. I said on Sunday, I don't know if you pay him, if you can do that with the year that they're having this season. I think that this year kind of showed that if Kyle's not scheming it up, it's a little rough. It looks a little rough. Not that Brock's a bad quarterback by any stretch. I still think that he's out there trying to make plays. But the numbers are the numbers. And right now he has 13 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Honestly, I think he'll be lucky to get to 20 touchdowns. And how do you pay market value for a quarterback that's only missed 1 game but is only going to have 20 touchdowns? I don't know. I don't know. How do you do that? I guess he technically has 24 or he technically has 17 touchdowns if you count his rushing touchdowns. So, but still, he's got 7. We're about to be week 14. This is week 14, right? And is that what it is? It's week 14, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's about to be week 14. So there's only 4 more weeks left. And he's only got 17 touchdowns total. But 13 passing touchdowns to me is not enough to be talking about paying market value for a top quarterback. Like that's, and the question is do I think that the 49ers could get away with saying, hey, can we play out the contract? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't think Brock would take it if he's not going to play another season on the lowly salary that he's making. I just highly doubt that. But at the same time, the 49ers aren't going to want to pay top dollar for 20 touchdowns. I just can't see it happening. And, I mean, I think that he is going to have a ridiculous turnaround for the rest of the season, which is entirely possible. We've seen it happen before. Like the 49, the quarterback, 49er quarterback has a really good last 4 weeks of the season, and then all of a sudden he gets broke off in the offseason. So it's always possible. But do I necessarily think that it just I don't know if this is a true transition in scheme and in philosophy. I don't know that that Brock can carry you there. I just haven't seen it like with them running this offense the way that they have. And are they going to continue to do it the way that they're doing it and just try to clean up the mistakes? Is that going to be enough to get them over the top against the better teams? Detroit is a beast. There is a couple of beastly teams. Green Bay's offense is on the come up. There's a bunch of teams. Minnesota. Like, there's a lot of teams out there that are better. Washington is going to be better next season. I just look at there's a lot of teams that are their trajectory is going up and the gap is closing very quickly. It's going to have to be a complete seismic shift on offense. And can Brock get us there and stay healthy is the question. Because now we're talking about another shoulder injury. He's gone through the UCL surgery. I don't know that the 49ers are going to want to pay him all that money. I'm undecided on it. I'll be honest. It's going to be an interesting offseason. Let's have Shanny finish it up.
Yeah. Yep.
Jawan,
Last one, guys.
he's had, twice after he's had great games, 10-plus catches against the Rams and Seahawks. He hasn't talked to the media, which we would like to talk to him, but I don't know he's so pissed about losing, even though he had a great game. I don't know, is that reflective of anything about him or his competitiveness?
I don't know. I didn't even know he wasn't talking to you guys. So that's the first I've heard. Can I do that too? Maybe Jawan's just smarter than I am. Yeah, I didn't know. Jawan's an emotional dude, and that's what makes him so great. I mean, you guys see how he plays. And Jawan's one of my favorite people in the world. I mean, he's unique and just the energy he brings to everything. And I haven't asked him because I didn't know that, but I'm sure he hasn't been in the mood after games. He takes those hard.
Okay, can I ask a follow-up?
I guess.
Not to get you right or anything, but you're not a bad loser. I mean, you may be a bad loser, but in public, in press conferences, you answer the questions. Not every coach does that. And like after Green Bay, you're like getting more questions, and most coaches are like out of there. Is that your dad, or is that just you as far as how you're supposed to handle things?
I don't know. That's just how I am. I answer questions. I'm not a good, I don't make stuff up, so I try to answer your guys' questions, especially if it's not a stupid question. Sometimes I struggle with ones that I don't understand. Forgive me if I think they're stupid. They might not be. I just don't understand them all, but that's how I do press conferences. I answer the questions. So I always try to do that without hurting our own team. And that's really about as simple as I keep it. But no, I don't take losing well. But I'm not showing you guys how I deal with my life in these 8 great minutes.
So that's the interview for Shanny. and leave it to Shanny at the end of the interview to do typical Shanny stuff, which is to downplay the media, to let them know that he can't stand talking to them. And I don't think any coach really does like doing the interviews. It's only fun when you're winning. And in this time, with this time right now, like when the 49ers aren't playing up to par, it's not like they're the worst team in the league, but they're not where they should be, at least where we all think they should be. So it is what it is. It is what it is. The 49ers are struggling this year. They're 5-7. we're looking at this team, and so we're all searching for answers. Shanny's not giving us any, like as to what direction this team is going in. We kind of see them keep trying the same thing over and over and over again, and they're just waiting for better execution. But it's just not coming. It's because I think that's for multiple reasons. Any other year, I would say if it was the same crew that went out there and kept playing, they probably would clean up a lot of these issues. But the problem is with the injuries. With the injuries, they can't, and they're rolling out a different team every single week. So it's going to be huge amounts of inconsistencies because guys aren't used to playing with other guys. Brock doesn't know who his wide receiver is going to be on any given week, and not. I don't want to blame this whole season on injuries because Shanny is running his offense the way he runs his offense. He is not, in my opinion, he is not doing what it takes to put the guys that he does have healthy in a like if this let me put it this way. If you have succeeded years past with wide zone motion, zone run plays and play action, and you want to transition to something else, because this isn't the first time that Kyle has tried to transition the offense and try new things. This is the first time that I've seen him stick to it and just be willing to lose games doing it. Eventually, he used to go back to his tried and true, run the ball and play off a play action. And he's not doing that this year. He's just riding it till the wheels fall off. And people are waiting for him to go back to what made this team great, and he's just not going to do it. So it'll be interesting this week to see what happens, but I don't know. I don't know. I think we're all going to be waiting to look and waiting to find out. But I appreciate everybody coming out. I will be back after the game on Sunday. I'll actually have time this time because I do live in Houston, so the West Coast games. I mean, I'm 2 hours ahead of you guys, so it's when they have a night game like they did last week. It's really hard for me to keep my wife out of our room / my recording room, and so. But this week we have a 3. Well, for me it's 3:00. It's 1:00 for you guys. Game. So right after the game, I will be on, and make sure you give the video a like. Make sure that you give it a subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so you get the notifications for when I go live. I really appreciate all the support, and I want to say I've been trying to have something for everybody to think about at the end of each of these shows. Make sure that you give your family a hug. If anything of this season, if anything this season has taught anybody with the 49ers, keep your loved ones close. Cherish those moments. We're in the holiday season, and it shouldn't just be in the holiday season, but cherish those moments. Thinking about Trent Williams, thinking about Mooney Ward, and I'm getting choked up just thinking about them. To know what they're going through, especially this time of year, everybody needs to think about those things. And this is not just. It's not when you stop thinking about football, it makes you stop thinking about football a minute and just remember that these players are human beings. And but it makes you reflect on your own life and how lucky a lot of us are to have our loved ones and to watch our kids grow up. And but yeah, prayers up for those guys. I could not imagine, and I'm so, my heart goes out to all of them. So, but that would be my little Zen moment for a minute, is just keep your loved ones close, and don't hold them, don't take them for granted. It's but with that being said, I'm gonna get out of here. make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend, and just join this community. Like let's get this, keep growing, and yeah, enjoy your holiday season with your family. I will see you guys Sunday, but oh, should I stop the? Oh, there it is. Yeah. And but yeah, I appreciate everybody coming out. Terror Dome, Papa J, Captain, who else? Jesus, Riley, Media, appreciate you coming through, fam. And yeah, like I said, hopefully 49ers Bears. Hopefully the 49ers can get on track. There's still a chance they make the playoffs. Do we want them making the playoffs at this point? Depends on who you are. Some people don't want, some people want them to tank it out and get a higher draft pick. I like to see my team win. So I'm going to be pulling for the 49ers. I want them to beat the Bears, Bears. And I got a lot of family in Chicago, so big up to my family in Chicago. And but yeah, like let's pull for our team. Let's hope that they can galvanize and get it all together. And you guys have a great rest of your week. But as always, go Niners.